welcome to ThinkTech on a given Wednesday afternoon. Sharon, Moriwaki, and me co-hosts for Hawaii, the state of clean energy. Okay, right? Sharon, say hi.
Hi, aloha.
I knew she'd say that. Okay, and today we have a special guest. We have Shasha Fesharaki of Facts Global Energy, which is like an energy think tank. Am I right about that?
That's right.
Yeah, it's a research institution essentially, consulting arm. Yeah.
When I get older, I want to be like that. Okay, we have Keith Block also for the Negawatt Moment. He's from Hawaii Energy, and he has some high tech for us today. So let's begin with you, Keith.
Okay, well, like you said, I have a high-tech solution for you today. You know all those hotel rooms in Waikiki? Kind of plenty of them, right? So each one of those, or almost every one of them, has a box in there that controls the amount of cool air that's coming in. And those things are called fan coil units. And each one of those fan coil units has a small motor in it that runs a blower fan that blows in there. And you can control that so that each customer can control just the right amount of cool air coming into their room. They can have it whatever temperature they want. But most of those, or almost all of them, are old-fashioned, what they call shade pole motors. And that's where a brush rides on the shaft of the motor that changes the polarity of the electricity running through the motor to keep it chasing that magnetic field and keep the motor spinning.
You think, nobody knows about this. You think people out there don't understand about brushes and whatnot.
Yeah, that's
we
what
all
we think.
remember from shop.
I was
I don't
hoping
remember.
everybody would, because then it's
remember.
real easy to remember what this is. But the new solution is something called a brushless motor, or electrically commutated motor. And that's where, instead of a brush riding on the motor, there's actually nothing physically touching the shaft. There's sensors on there, and then there's a microprocessor that senses exactly where that shaft is at any point in time. And they electronically, with a microprocessor, adjust the polarity of the electricity running through the motor and keeps it going.
And the result?
The result is, with brushes riding, you've got resistance, you've got friction, you've got heat, and they're also just not very accurate. With a microprocessor, you can be much more accurate at when you're shifting that pole. You can always right on that torque curve. So not only are they
very highly efficient.
Very highly efficient. An old shade pole motor is about 45% efficient. The new brushless motors are about 80% efficient. And the beauty with this is, since they're so much efficient, they put out less heat, which the heat is in the air-conditioned, air coming into your room, so they put less heat into the air-conditioned air that you just, oh, sorry. But,
You take that, Sharon.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
If that's when you rip it up.
Anyhow, we had noticed recently that even though it's a great technology, nobody was doing it. We had a $55 incentive for it last year, and nobody took advantage of it. So we said, well, we got to jigger the market a little bit, make this thing work. So we raised the incentive to $100 this year per motor, and already we've got indications from the vendors. It's a limited time offer, only through January 30th, and then sign contract through January 30th, and then installed before the end of June. And already we've got people saying about 7,000 motors they think they'll get installed. That's the distributor telling us.
So how much does a motor cost? I mean, the raw price of it.
The whole installation, it's kind of very labor intensive, because you got to actually climb into the air handler, the fan coil unit, and so the motor is not very expensive at all, but the labor is expensive. So the whole project is about $300 per motor. So our $100 is about a third of the cost.
Well, that's a substantial
That's
contribution, I'd say.
And I think, you see the results went from 0 participation last year to, what looks like maybe as much as 7,000 this year.
Well, you really got their attention this time.
Yeah, we hope so.
So who thought of this?
Actually, the motors have been around for a while. But it was me and my boss that said, hey, we've got to get this thing to move, and we're the ones that said we should...
100% increase in
That's
incentive.
Yeah, 100% increase in incentive might have an effect on the market, and it looks like it's been wildly successful.
Brainstorming is everywhere.
And everybody can come in, or just who can come in?
Well, mostly, like I said, it's going to be, the small fan coil units that are serving individual hotel rooms. So mostly it's hotel.
You can't put it in the house. It's not a house
No,
thing.
because you don't really have that kind of technology
Okay.
in your house.
Hurry up and go to the website Is that-
Go to the
is that what they have
website,
to do?
hawaiienergy.com, all
Yeah.
one word.
Yeah.
There's the application on there. You can, and also find our contact information on there as well. Give us a call and we'll get you set up.
This is great. Those guys keep coming
I
up
know,
with these
isn't it
things. It's
great?
impressive.
Week by week.
Fabulous. We are so happy to have you around.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me again.
Thank you, Keith Block. Okay, we're going to move to our
Special guest.
in chief, Shasha Fesharaki. Shasha, tell us what you do.
Sure. We're a consulting company working in the downstream oil and gas business. So what do I mean by downstream? Well, we're not involved in the exploration and production. We're involved more in the kind of marketing on the oil side, the refining, the commercial issues, things of this nature. So we have a number of clients around the world, about 250. 3 of them are in Hawaii.
Are you based
Wow.
here?
I am based here. The company was started in Hawaii in 1983, and we have since expanded. So our biggest office is now in Singapore, and we also have offices in London, Dubai, Beijing,
Wow.
Yokohama, as well as Perth.
Perth.
Yes, because Perth is actually a huge player in the LNG industry. They're one of the biggest exporters where Australia is, and particularly Western Australia where Perth is located. So it was a natural place for us to have a few people located, as we have a number of clients sitting in that part of the world.
So the front end, as far as your areas of interest are concerned, it'd be LNG.
Yeah, that's my special area.
Okay.
We do look at oil and gas as a company, but my focus within the group for the last 10 years has been on LNG.
Okay, how did you get to be where you are? I mean, did you take 27 PhDs in order to do this?
No, I was lucky enough to be born to the founder of the company.
Why can't I do that?
Well, it's funny, Jay, because I never planned on working for him. It was never part of the deal. It was never pushed. But did my MBA here at UH. 9/11 hit. I went, oh gosh, I need a job. So, Dad, can I come and work for you for a little while? And here we are 12 years later. So,
Wow.
Does he ask you questions all the time?
yeah.
Try to get advice from you?
It's pretty much mostly the other way around. If he needs to find out where the surf is, I can help him.
All right, perfect life. Okay, well, listen, it's very interesting because you are a think tank, and we kind of need a think tank. So every time I think about it, you're more important. Actually, it's a dynamic thing, especially about LNG. But we want to talk to you today about the whole landscape and about the way of thinking which you engage in. So the first question is, what can you characterize for our listeners and viewers? What is the situation? What is the landscape today in energy, renewable energy, the whole package in Hawaii?
Yeah, let me say a few words about Hawaii's energy situation. Given our location, we have the unfortunate distinction of being the most oil-dependent state in the nation. Almost 90% of our total energy consumption is derived from oil products, and that's because oil is easy to transport. It has a lot of BTUs in a barrel of oil, so it made sense. Unfortunately now, in light of the increase in oil prices, Hawaii consumers are suffering, particularly because we rely on oil for 75% of our power generation. That is completely abnormal. Nowhere else in the U.S. does that really occur. If you look at the U.S. as a whole, less than 1% of power generated in the United States is by oil. We're at 75%. So that's a huge difference. And then you put into the factors that we've had in Japan, the Fukushima crisis, the big nuclear outages. They use the same oil we do. It's a very specific kind of oil, low sulfur fuel oil, low sulfur crudes.
Let me stop you for a moment.
Sure.
What is low sulfur, and why did we want to use it? Why do they want to use it in lieu of other kinds of crude?
You often burn fuel oil for power generation because it has more BTUs, and low sulfur is just basically it's less polluting than high sulfur essentially.
But it's more expensive.
But it's much more expensive. And the problem is it's a very thin market. So what you had, because there's only a certain amount of crudes that fit these specifications, and now because Japan has burning a lot more of this crude in light of their nuclear outage, they're really tightening the market, and Hawaii consumers are suffering. So that's why we've seen, our electricity prices increase dramatically, and you can actually see a pretty strong correlation from, they've always been high, but they've been even higher since March 2011.
What's a barrel now?
What's a barrel now? Well, there's a couple different markers. So if you're going to use a U.S. marker, which is the West Texas Intermediate, it's about $95 a barrel. If for crude, Brent would be about 110. Low sulfur fuel oil, you're talking 130, 140 a barrel.
It's way up there.
Yeah, and logically, fuel oil should be cheaper. than crude, because when you refine a barrel of crude, you get a variety of different products, and fuel oil is the bottom of the barrel. And typically it's something that people just wanted to dispose of. Unfortunately, for us, we rely on that, and because of the Japanese situation and the squeeze on low sulfur oils, crude oil, we've been paying the price.
Is there any possibility, I know this is not likely, but is there any possibility that we could shift to another kind of cheaper oil?
That's a good question. It is possible, but you have to look at the configurations of the refineries. I mean, they are slated to process certain types of crude, and also looking at Hawaii's demand barrel, we're a bit unique in that we are a big jet fuel consumer, given our location. So the refineries are configured to produce as much jet fuel as possible, thereby minimizing low sulfur fuel oil and other products.
Okay, well, as far as you got before I interrupted you, you were talking about Japan and the U.S., or rather Hawaii, using low sulfur fuel and competing for the same barrels. So please continue.
No, I mean, just going back to the Hawaii situation, I think I'm looking forward.
Oh, whoops. Do you hear it?
I hear some
The music.
It's the music.
Yeah.
We have this music.
Into breaks.
It tells us that we have to take a break.
Okay.
So we're going to take a break, Shasha. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry.
No worries.
We want that kill that thought.
Thank you,
though.
Keith.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Thank you.
We'll be right back
Thank you.
after this short break to talk more with Shasha Fesharaki of Facts Global Energy.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell of ThinkTech. ThinkTech is a 501c3 Hawaii nonprofit corporation. We began ThinkTech in the year 2000. At ThinkTech, we work to raise public awareness about tech, energy diversification, and globalism in Hawaii. We do 20 live stream talk shows every business day, and we do a weekly TV show on OC16. We pay the bills with donations from our supporters. Won't you help us by making a donation? All you need to do is go to our website, thinktechhawaii.com, and click there on the Donate button. We hope that you like what we do and that you will support us and help us continue to do it. Thanks so much for watching and for helping. I'm Jay Fidell of ThinkTech. Mahalo.
Aloha. I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Maria Kashem of ThinkTech Hawaii, and I want to tell you about our ThinkTech talk shows. If you didn't know it, ThinkTech streams video and audio for all of its shows live on the internet from 2 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon, and we replay them all night long on ustream.tv. Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links. Raise your awareness on ThinkTech. I'm Maria Kashem, and I'll see you there.
Good evening. We're delighted that you've come to us today. We're here for ThinkTech Hawaii. Important issues, important people, people who talk too much. It's all right.
Back orders. Thank you, Leah Rodriguez of KGU. We're back. We're live. This is ThinkTech Energy Wednesday, Hawaii, the state of energy. My co-host Sharon Moriwaki and our special guest Shasha Fesharaki of Facts Global Energy to talk about energy thinking. So we were talking about the landscape now, and you talked about oil and the price of low sulfur oil. What else what are the other markers of our landscape?
Well, I don't know about other markers per se, but I will say this. Hawaii, given our huge dependence, something has to be done. I mean, we cannot continue business as usual. That is 100% certain. So the state has obviously taken big initiatives in doing that through the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, and that's definitely a step in the right direction. In my view, and I think most people's views, at least that I speak with, there is no silver bullet. It's not going to be only solar, it's not going to be only wind, it's not going to be only geothermal, it's not going to be only renewables. You need a basket of fuels for really energy security as well as price diversification. So I think we're on the path there, but we still have a ways to go as far as where we're going to end up as far as our ultimate fuel mix is concerned.
Okay, I have some questions.
Sure.
A basket, that's like the basket of currencies in China, What's in the basket? Because you can't have everything in the basket.
No.
There are certain, dead ducks,
Yep.
if you excuse my
Yep.
expression, that should not be in the basket. What is in the basket? What should be in the basket, Fesha?
Sure. Well, right now we have in the basket, obviously, we have oil, we have some coal that we're using, we have a huge increase in solar, as we're all aware, we have some wind as well. In my view, if I was king of the world,
Well, you are here today with us. You are the king of the world. It's okay.
if I was king of the world and there was no roadblocks, I mean, it's pretty clear to me we should be doing a geothermal as a baseload fuel for our power generation, whether it be from the Big Island or the Big Island in Maui and bringing the cables over here, and first backing out as much oil as we can in the power sector, because that is killing the average Joe, that is killing me, that is killing you, that is killing everyone on the streets.
And our economy.
And our economy, exactly. When we're paying 3 times the price for electricity than the U.S. mainland, that's a problem.
I always say that if you have, $6 billion and you drop it all over the economy, everybody's going to feel a lot better.
Exactly. You bring up a good point. Our oil bill is about $6 billion a year.
Yeah.
$6 billion. That is, and I think our GDP is around $60 billion. So that's a significant crimp. So I would back out all of the oil in the power sector, presumably, hopefully, with something like geothermal.
I hate to do digression on you, but you haven't mentioned the transportation sector.
Yeah, we got to get
What
to
about that? Would you back that out too?
Well, that is a tough nut to crack. That is the problem. Oil can easily be back. There's a lot of competing fuels in the power sector, as we mentioned: wind, geothermal, solar, natural gas, hydro, whatever it may be. The transport sector is still an area that is completely dominated by fossil fuels, particularly oil.
Did you see the article in the paper about how Hawaii is buying more cars than other places?
Yeah.
Our economy is like a little stale, but we're buying more cars than other places. And guess what? Those cars are actually gas-guzzling
That's
fossil
right.
fuel
Yeah,
cars.
not that-
Sorry.
Well, there's a little bit of increase in the hybrids, but not, like the SUVs are still up there.
I mean, in the future, if we can, the end goal is obviously some kind of car driven by a fuel cell, where you can get the hydrogen from water, but that is way down the road. What you're
There's
seeing.
another piece that came out in the paper. Ooh, we got a lot of things in the mix here now. Just a couple days ago, for the proposition that there's an American or maybe it's Nissan. Somebody is going to really manufacture a hydrogen car. To me, I think this is very important. I'm interested in your view of that. So that could change the transportation picture.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
it's way down the road, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's something that is likely to come down the road, as you mentioned, but the problem is the infrastructure to service that. We're not obviously there yet. But let me go back to another competing fuel is natural gas in the transport sector. You're seeing an explosion right now in the U.S. mainline.
You don't mean that literally.
No, I don't mean that literally.
I wonder if I didn't catch that piece of news. Was anybody
We're
killed?
seeing a surge in natural gas vehicles for transport. particularly amongst heavy-duty fleet vehicles and mass transit vehicles. You're getting all these, whether it be compressed natural gas or LNG itself can actually be used in these vehicles. So you're seeing a number of stations, companies such as Clean Energy out of California, building what they call a natural gas highway, essentially. So you're able to, if you're trucking from, say, the East Coast to the West Coast, you'll be able to fuel up. So we're seeing that, and we're seeing that actually affect a bit gasoline demand in the United States. Now, there's not a huge penetration, and we don't expect penetration to get, maybe more than 5-10%, but it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, back to your
Energy.
primary view of it, which was let's use geothermal, let's have an undersea cable, and make that, we'll pull all the oil out of the system that we can, and then use that as the main, are you saying the main supply of energy through geothermal?
For power generation, correct.
Right.
And then I could still see a role for natural gas. Maybe not necessarily for power, but for Hawaii Gas's utility gas customers, they could certainly supply them instead of this very ridiculously expensive synthetic natural gas, which for those who are not aware is derived from naphtha, which is part of an oil barrel. So essentially you're cracking oil and then you're getting that naphtha and you're cracking that and making synthetic natural gas, and it can be 5 times, 10 times more expensive than what we could land natural gas in Hawaii for.
Natural gas would do the same job in the same devices.
Correct.
You wouldn't have to convert anything.
No.
That's great.
So basically, you can fill the utility gas sector, and you could see a role for natural gas also in the transport sector, perhaps in Hawaii, maybe amongst the buses, maybe amongst the dump trucks. A lot of the dump trucks being ordered in the West Coast municipalities are all being driven now by LNG or natural gas, and it's of course being driven by the economics. We haven't talked about the price. Why is Hawaii so interested, or have they been interested in LNG? And a lot of it is because it's a fraction of the price of oil on a BTU basis right now. So if you look at the price of natural gas on a barrel of oil equivalent, right now today it's about $18 a barrel of oil equivalent. Earlier I said oil selling for 95 to 110 depending on what market you use. So that's a huge difference. So if you're located close to the source, like they are on the mainland, it's a no-brainer. Now in Hawaii you have to liquefy it, bring it on ships, you're going to have added costs, so the savings aren't going to be as great, but there will still be savings. When we looked at the numbers, if we convert 25% of our power generation on Oahu to run on natural gas, in our scenarios you could be saving $250 million a year. If we converted 50%, you could be saving $500 million a year. And you do that over a 20-year period, it's pretty significant money.
But aside from the fracking issue, which Blue Planet and the Sierra Club don't like too much, on a national level, Sierra Club just opposes that, period. Aside from that, what about the problem of getting married to natural gas and not being able to get an annulment?
It's a great point. It's a very different business because it's so capital intensive to build the infrastructure. It's a long-term commitment, long-term meaning anywhere from 10 to 20 years. As we've talked before, we like to say that oil is like dating and gas is like getting married, because it really is a marriage. And your mother-in-law is a banker who moves in with you to make sure that you behave, and that's essentially what it comes down to, because these projects that they're building, these are multi-billion-dollar projects to developers, and they're only going to sell that offtake if they can get a long-term commitment. And no one's going to finance that unless the banks.
So it's got to pencil
So
out.
even if you have the tankers coming in that's offshore, it's still very costly for the infrastructure, or is that?
Well, it ultimately depends on how big, and the size, and the scale, the capacity. But onshore, offshore, when we look at the numbers, you're looking at anywhere from $200 million for the infrastructure to $500 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but we're spending $6 billion a year on oil. So if you can get those 25% savings that we've looked at, then it begins to pay off itself relatively quickly. But going back to your question, it is a long-term commitment. So if you're going to commit to gas, you got to commit to at least 10 years. Probably
That's not
more
bad.
like 20 years.
10-year commitment is not really threatening. It's a 30-year commitment or a 40-year commitment or a commitment that has no end.
Right.
That's what I think people worry about.
Right.
And that when we feel so strongly about renewables, we'd be cutting ourselves out of renewables if we got married.
You're right.
You know, I mean that's an argument.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it goes. But okay, so you see LNG as one of the elements in the landscape going forward.
Definitely one of the potential elements. There's discussions ongoing now between the state and various utilities, and it's definitely something that people are looking at. No decisions have been made at this time. Maybe we could use a bit more leadership from certain aspects and for an energy strategy as a whole, and I think that's what you might want to talk about.
Before we do that, though, just real quick, where do you see solar and wind going forward?
Where do we see solar and wind going forward? Well, I don't know how much more solar capacity Oahu can take. You have some parties saying that we can just take care of all of our generation with solar on Oahu, and others that say, no, we need the cable from the Big Island, whatever it may be. So we've seen a massive penetration rate. I think 9% or 10% of all households on Oahu have solar now. Maybe you'll see that increase, by double in the next 5-10 years. We have wind as well. I'm not sure how much more capacity will be added given the kind of NIMBY movement and whatnot. So,
How kind of you.
Regardless, even if we increase it substantially, there'll have to be something else, whether it's another renewable fuel or whether it's hydrocarbon such as natural gas.
What about storage? Where does storage fit in all of this?
That's a great.
Oh, well, you have time to think about it.
Because I don't have the answer, so.
He knows the answer. But everybody should understand, Efficient knows the answer now. So this break, we're going to talk about, small talk. But then we'll be right back. That's Shasha Fesharaki of Facts Global Energy, Sharon, Moriwaki, and me. We're having a nice time today on Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, I'm Attila Seres of ThinkTech. ThinkTech is a 501c3 Hawaii nonprofit corporation. We began ThinkTech in the year 2000. At ThinkTech, we work to raise public awareness about tech, energy, diversification, and globalism in Hawaii. We do 20 live stream talk shows every business day, and we do a weekly TV show on OC16. We pay the bills with donations from our supporters. Won't you help us by making a donation? All you need to do is go to our website, thinktechhawaii.com, and click on the donate button. We hope that you like what we do and that you will support us and help us continue to do it. Thanks so much for watching and for helping. I'm Attila Seres of ThinkTech. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. Mahalo.
Hi, how are you? You feeling good? Are you feeling lucky? ThinkTech Hawaii, it puts a bubble in my bender. If you don't feel good, that's your fault. Now that's live TV, folks.
Jack, we're back. We're live. We're Energy Wednesday. on Hawaii, the state of clean energy, with Shasha Fesharaki of Facts Global Energy, and our sponsors, if it isn't clear, Hawaiian Electric, Hawaii Energy, and DBED. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back to where we were, you knew the answer to the question.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, I forgot the question.
Storage.
How could we forget that?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm an economist. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to pretend that I know all the ins and outs of storage. But it's a critical technology, particularly when you're talking about intermittent renewable sources such as solar and wind. If we can crack that nut as far as storage is concerned on a large scale, then that could change things. Then maybe we don't necessarily need the cable if we can build the capacity here that we need. So I think storage is obviously one of the solutions for some of these intermittent renewable sources.
I'd like to get an email newsletter every morning on the status of research and development in storage. Because I think I think it's going to change the world.
I certainly believe that too.
It's a big problem for us here in Hawaii because we don't know how fast it's going to move, and we have to make decisions, based on guesswork on storage. If only somebody could tell us. Okay, which I guess takes me to another question. I mean, that is, how do we integrate all these pieces into an appropriate plan? Because right now, a lot of people say, and I think they're right, we don't have an integrated plan. We have the IRP, but we don't know if that's going to be the plan or not. How do we get together on this from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, you need strong leadership. I mean, that is one of the things that one could say is missing to really bring together all the different parties who have various vested interests in their own particular fields. So leadership is something that we could, as a state, as citizens, could do better at. Whether it comes from the energy office here, who's done a good job, or the governor, or the legislature themselves. But someone needs to be in the middle of this and driving policy. I'm not saying we go down the road of somewhere like China, where the government says this is our 5-year plan, we're doing this, here it is, and take it.
Of course, but there is a certain seduction about that.
There is actually, Jay. There is. Sometimes dictators aren't such a bad thing, to get things done. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest roadblocks I've seen in the state of Hawaii. Is the lack of leadership, and I think we're seeing that get better and better. DBED is doing a better job now, but I think we still have a ways to go.
Do you think this is going to be? I put this question to you too, Sharon. Do you think this is going to be a campaign issue?
It should be. I think it should be. It's critical. It's a driving force.
I absolutely agree. I mean, how come it's not on the forefront of the majority of people's minds? I mean, you hear, whether it be train or same-sex marriage or whatever it may be. These are important issues as well, but not all of it affects everyone. This affects every single person in this state, the energy. So it is highly critical, and it's something that the public needs to be educated on and the public needs to be involved with. And I don't think it's on people's radars. Maybe people are just used to paying, $250 a month for their power bill, and they just think that's the way it is, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Oh, you are so right about that. But how do you put it on the top of the priorities list, not only for the public, but for the legislature, for everyone? Say, I can give you a sustainable economy. I can give you a better life every day. I can change everything here, make us a guaranteed 21st century state. All you got to do is put it on the top of the list.
Well, I think forums like the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum that Sharon's heavily involved with is definitely a step in the right direction. I mean, again, educating people is important. It's the first step you have to take, and not necessarily everyone understands the situation, unfortunately.
Well, I wanted to get to, we have much to discuss, but I wanted to get to, your scientific thinking, your, data gathering, analysis, and coming to, quality conclusions. How do you do that in Facts Global Energy? What's the process like on a daily basis?
Okay, well, we do a lot of mid to long-term forecasting, so we work a lot with government agencies or our clients in various parts of the world, and get some information, historical information, and then we basically model the future. We're looking at interfuel substitution, particularly how oil competes with other fuels such as natural gas or wind or hydro. We look at the company's or the country's energy policy because, believe it or not, and the U.S. doesn't have an energy policy, but other parts of the world do. And while some of them may be rather ambitious, we make some conclusions on what we think is real and what is not. And we also go to every single one of these countries and actually talk to the people. So I mentioned earlier, we have 250 clients. We go to every single one's office and visit them at least once a year. And we're able to develop deep insights that you can't read in a trade publication or on the internet, that you can see when you're dealing with someone face to face. They might not answer the question, but you can read their body language. So it's really important to really be there face to face.
There's a conversation with them.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a two-way conversation,
It's a two-way.
I expect.
It
You're
is.
getting data, but you're also giving your preliminary conclusion.
Exactly, and to be frank, we often learn more from them than they do from us.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's a two-way street.
Well, I think communication
So in these
is the
countries
mother.
where you say there's good leadership that has moved the country forward, I mean, what are some of those models, or what kinds of, because they were obviously in our position way back when, and now have moved into more enlightened, I guess, strategies. What can you see lessons learned from other places that might help us if we strategize?
That's a good question. You know, a lot of these other countries have renewables or their own energy sources, so they have a lot more options. Hawaii is just so isolated that it's very, very challenging. You look at somewhere like Japan, maybe they would fall into a similar category than we do. But they have, for example, the Ministry of Energy, Trade and Economy, who really drives energy policy. And they formulate the rules and regulations and basically take some input from their parliament and move forward. And that is something that we really lack and don't have. And as far as that Japan is concerned, that those are real policies that people have to follow. You're not going to be able to scoot around them. So it's done collectively with the lawmakers and with the ministry, and they move forward from that.
Okay, so you're getting facts, data from, I guess, the internet and your special sources. You must have special sources in terms of spreadsheets and all this. You're analyzing the data with some kind of analytical tools in order to, sort of process it and come out with your own interpretation of that data.
Correct.
And then from there, you have to get to conclusions and recommendations. How do you do that? Is it in the middle of the night with lots of coffee? I mean, how does that work?
Well, it really depends on what particular piece we're working on. But we have a brainstorming sessions amongst ourselves often. I mean, it's not always, try not to work in silos. Again, going back to the communication thing, it's inherently important within an organization itself. So often we're on the phone, kicking ideas back and forth with each other, and then making some guesses, because we all know everyone who forecasts it's wrong. It's just how wrong are you? So,
Gee, that's important, actually.
Yeah.
So whenever you see a report, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
certainly.
Try to examine the credibility of the organization, look at the process by which they reached the conclusion, look at the data they used, and then sort of make a calculated guess as to where it fits in the world of reports.
Exactly, because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff out there. Well, I mean, I think it's valuable to have you here. Do I hear music?
No.
Hearing music now. Whoa. I think it's valuable to have you. I mentioned that before, and I think that you're somebody that we could learn from in terms of the thought process. But let me ask you this. I mean, so you have a way of doing think tank process, as we outlined. How can we take that kind of process and make it larger? How can we sort of get the community involved in that kind of process so it's rational, it's scientific even? How do we bring everybody together in that way? It's not just a matter of having Facts Global Energy tell us what it thinks. It's a matter of us becoming a Facts Global Energy.
Well, I mean, you have to have everyone involved, all the various stakeholders, and as I mentioned, the policy forum is one way of doing that. Just kind of increasing communication and working with the various groups is how we see it going forward. So I don't know, maybe Sharon has any views on.
Well, I think that's a terrific process, and that's what we do try to do, is bring the opponents and proponents and really have a good conversation about what has to go forward. I think the next steps are the more difficult, is the
next steps.
execution.
Well,
and
yeah,
then you say
and
leadership.
that brings
and where
me
that
to the
comes
most difficult question of all, which is Sharon's question. You know, so we all agree that A, we're a little stuck. B, that we can do better in terms of making a plan. We have the tools, but we're not together about it, so we need to get together about it and raise the level of communication and collective thinking and all that. The hard question is, what are the barriers exactly that we have to overcome in order to get together in the crab pot, the alamihi pot, if you will?
Well, you have a variety of people with a variety of vested interests who are looking to push their particular fuel or technology or whatever it may be, and not necessarily always in the best interest of the state. So, you know, whether it be an NGO or a institution that is not associated with any of these developers, you really have to have someone here kind of speak from an independent standpoint and really try and bring everything together.
And that's leadership.
That's leadership.
So the leader people have to be at the level of the common good. They should not be self-interested. They should be academics or whatever, interested in the common good. And then when you have that, everything else will follow, I think.
I mean, do we appoint a kind of task force whose focus is this particular mission? You know, where you're drawing from, you know, DBED, from people in the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, from others, or is that going to rub some people the wrong way? Perhaps. But I mean, it's clear that the current situation could be a bit better.
Yeah. Well, you know, I extend one thought. You talked about self-interest, and I think that really is a problem. People should be able to, you know, distance themselves from self-interest and do what the forum has always suggested. But the other part is kuleana. And when we come back from this break, can we examine that as a factor, a challenge in reaching nirvana, which we're going to do here later. That's Shasha Fesharaki, Facts Global Energy. Here we are on Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, with me and Sharon Moriwaki, the co-chair of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. We'll be right back after this short break.
I'm David Day, the host of Asia in Review. This is a ThinkTech program in which we take the issues of the Asia-Pacific region, whether they be in business, in foreign policy, in national security, or geopolitics. And we take those issues and we try to probe down in some real depth. Maybe it's not always politically correct, but we get to the truth. We do things that the regular media can't do. And the reason that we can do those things is because we here at ThinkTech have the contacts, we have the network, and we can take the time and explore the issues in depth. Tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. here at ThinkTech Hawaii.
Aloha, I'm Sharon Moriwaki with the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. Please join Jay Fidell and me every Wednesday, 4 o'clock p.m. on Energy Wednesday. See you then.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidell. Mahalo. Hi, I'm Jay Fidell. Yes, this is ThinkTech, broadcasting on Ustream and Spreaker both day and night, doing its thing on OC16 and Olelo, and uploading videos all over YouTube. Check us out and see the links on thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Aloha, I'm Maria Kashem of ThinkTech Hawaii, and I want to tell you about our ThinkTech talk shows. If you didn't know it, ThinkTech streams video and audio for all of its shows live on the internet from 2 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon, and we replay them all night long.
Ah, yes, we're back, we're live, we're here on Energy Wednesday in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, provided to you by Hawaiian Electric, Hawaii Energy, and DBED. I'm here with Sharon Moriwaki and our special guest, Shasha Fesharaki of Fax Global Energy. And P.S., we are not only broadcasting this on KGU 760 AM, but also on Ustream and Spreaker for video and audio live stream. And we'll put it on YouTube. It'll be there forever, Sharon, whatever you say. It'll be Shasha forever. And we'll put it on Olelo, too. Okay? That's what we do here at ThinkTech. We do 20 shows a week like this. It's really wonderful. Okay, back to the topic. I get lost sometimes. So, here we are, and we have to get through the resistance points. First, we have to identify what they are, and I suggested before the break that one of them may be just as simple as kuleana, which is a kind of self-interest. So, can you comment on that? I mean, am I right about that, and how do we get through it?
I think you are right about that, and how we get through that is that word again, communication. We need to really, let everyone know what the other people are doing, and let the merits or the projects work out on their merits alone instead of your special interest.
Yeah.
So whether it be other forums or task force or whatever it may be, whatever the venue is, we need to have this kind of communication and let people promote their projects, promote their developments on merit and economics alone.
This is the most challenging initiative ever in history in Hawaii, for sure. And maybe, comparing against other initiatives elsewhere, it may be the most challenging. We are transforming our economy, our way of life, what we do every day. We're transforming large capital concentrations in our various sectors. My goodness gracious, everything, it's all getting transformed. How can you do that at random? There's so many possibilities to make a mistake.
And there's so much uncertainty at this stage from all various players, so people don't know what the future is going to look like. So it's very hard for stakeholders, whether it be the government or the developers themselves, to move forward, because there's so much uncertainty. Is there going to be a cable? If so, when? Is it going to be in 10 years? Is it going to be in 20 years? If it's going to be in 20 years, we're going to continue to be burning oil then. So let's, do we want to look at LNG, or do we continue to burn oil? So there's just so many moving parts. It's a very, very complicated jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, so,
So
of
help
course.
us out. What can we do? What can we do, like small steps, and the vision beyond? How do we orchestrate ourselves to get the public much more aware, but also moving ahead, because there's so
what
many
step
interests.
What step
What's
do you
the first
take
step?
tomorrow
Yeah.
morning, Sasha?
Brush his teeth.
First, you wake up alive. That's the first thing.
No, seriously, we'd like to know.
Well, it's
What can we do?
it's a great question, and I hate to keep harping on the same kind of thing, but we need to basically communicate. We need to have a dialogue, a constructive, real dialogue on merits and economics, and we need to have some leadership. Whether it's coming directly from the governor's office or whether it's coming directly from DBED, we need something solid, a path to follow, and we're not there yet. Now the renewable energy standards, that is a path to follow. It's now law as part of the EPS, so we know that we have to have 40% by whatever it may be, in 2035. So you know, that thing makes things a bit more clear, but we don't know what renewables are going to be in there. You look at
Yeah, we don't know even how we got those numbers. It was like, let's see, where should we pin the tail of the donkey here?
tail wagging the dog. Yeah, so, and that creates a lot of uncertainty for, you know, for example, the refineries. We saw the report in the Advertiser this morning. The task force had released some of the results, and from the study they'd done by, I think it was IFC in DC, and the challenge for the refiners is the exact same thing. They don't know what the market's going to be in 10 or 15 years. If all their need for the low sulfur fuel oil that they produce is no longer needed, then it's not necessarily that they can continue to operate, because one of the refiners in particular is manufacturing it just for HECO essentially. So perhaps one of them will have to close, perhaps both of them will close, which, you know, you lose some jobs, but maybe it's not necessarily, in some people's eyes, a bad thing. You can still get oil products from imports, so there are ways around that.
Does it cost more if you don't have refineries locally?
Not necessarily. A lot of we do have Aloha imports oil, so whether the imported oil products, the local oil is sold around the same price, because you can always have the option of bringing it in the outside, so you can't be too far off market. There are some people concerned that if the refineries close, there's an energy security issue, you know, in case of war or whatnot. You know, will ships be able to come here? But that, in our view, is not a necessarily huge concern in our view, because we still believe we'll be able to get the product on island. You'll have storage and whatnot as well.
Well, I'll only skip to fast forward to the future, because we have about 3 minutes left. And that is, you know, what do you see? What does Fax Global Energy see in the future? Do you have a vision of it, say 10, 20 years from now in Hawaii? What is it going to look like? This is really a hard question. But I mean, a model as you would wish it, If everything goes swell, what's it going to look like?
Well, I could certainly see a scenario where if the geothermal comes in, then we push out all the oil in the power generation sector, which would be significant. Then, however, one of the refineries, maybe both, will have to close. Again, you could still import oil products, so oil used for transport and stuff will still be available. You could also see something like natural gas coming in. One of the reasons why people like natural gas as well, it's a better load following for power generation. But also, if we don't need it for power, we can use it for the utility gas sector, Hawaii Gas's consumers, as well as perhaps the transport sector. Now, is geothermal going to be here in 10 years? That's a big question. If it's not, we're going to continue status quo. Status quo is not acceptable. So we're going to have to look at various alternatives. If the geothermal is not here in 20 years, that's, you know, double the status quo essentially from 10 years.
So we'll all be in some kind of stasis. That's not so good.
No. So I think really, to me, what's going to happen with geothermal is the key to really shaping Hawaii's energy policy, because that, to me, is a no-brainer, particularly for the power sector. It's you can get it here relatively cheap. I mean, I've seen numbers thrown around, maybe 10 cents a kilowatt hour, whatever it may be, which we're paying 35, 36, 37 cents right now. So if you can do that, then we can make it cheaper for the consumer, and we open other options. If we cannot do that, then we should seriously look, in my view, at burning liquefied natural gas in our power sector until the renewables come on stream from geothermal, or until we solve the storage situation from intermittent supply sources.
You haven't mentioned anything about nuclear energy, I noticed.
Yeah.
So that's it?
No, nuclear is interesting. Well, you know, it was the flavor for the last, you know, how many years, and then in light of Fukushima, everything has changed. So Japan is no longer, all these ones that were planned for under construction, they're off the table. Germany has kicked out nuclear as well from 2020. They'll be burning more gas. Korea is going along the same route. So while nuclear energy is a cheap and clean source, in light of the potential disasters and what we've seen in Fukushima, it's really not on anyone's radar. You know what's coming back in the world, though? Coal. Coal is making a drastic comeback. So you've seen, even in Europe, consumption's gone up dramatically. In Japan,
It's clean coal, processed to be clean.
yes, but it's
What
still
is
got a
clean
lot.
coal?
But it's still got a lot of coal.
Yeah,
And it's got a lot of carbon. But in places like Europe, they have a carbon tax. It doesn't matter. They just pay the carbon tax, and it's still cheaper. Europe's supposed to be really environmentally kind of friendly and conscious, but they're burning a ton of coal. They're actually burning a lot more coal that's being exported from the United States because we're burning more natural gas, and we don't need the coal. So that's getting pushed out to places like Europe. Japan is going through a major revolution now with coal as well. So, this is a country that started the Kyoto Protocol, which was really, when they're trying to lower emission standards, not raise it. So it's really been a pretty dynamic shift where you've seen an increase globally in coal consumption at the expense of nuclear.
And we haven't even touched climate change. I mean, while we play the fiddle, climate change is changing. Watch the weather. Well, that's Shasha Fesharaki of Facts Global Energy, doing wonderful things. Thank you, Shasha, for coming down.
Thank you for having me,
Jeff.
Thank you for telling us about how you work.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
my
Sharon.
co-host, Sharon Moriwaki. This is Energy Wednesday, Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We'll be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock with Global Connections, and at 4 o'clock with Asia in Review. And we also have a show with 2 law professors at 3 o'clock. Danielle Conboy-Jones and Michelle Evans. We'll be right back then. We'll be back tomorrow.